It is a very good morning to you all and welcome to the Breakfast Club right here on Asake. And as you know, we always bring you amazing guests from across the globe who are doing amazing things and of course, giving us food for thought as well. So the gentleman I am joined, in our virtual studio today is none other than the Information and Publicity Secretary for the party UPND. He's also an author and an activist, and he's the former president of the African Union Youth Simulation, and has written 3 books in his career, so to speak. 3 books including Persecuted in Search of Change, The Pain of an Empty Stomach, and The Teenagehood and Impact of Western World. And of course, he's been described by many as a hero, and to others, he's a villain. Ladies and gentlemen, Joseph Kalimbwe, thank you so much for joining us this morning. How are you, Joseph?
I'm all right, thank you. It's an honor to be here, particularly to speak with your listeners and engage on a broader narrative about a myriad of issues. So I look forward to the conversation.
You have quite a colorful history for someone who hasn't been alive for more than 3 decades, whether it comes to activism, politics, your days in university and the likes. What is your driving force behind the person who you are today as an activist and as a politician?
Well, the main reasons why we got in this is because I grew up in a Zambia where we were experiencing poor leadership, and I come from an area in Zambia where, it's very difficult to make it. I had to move from that place while I was still very young. I think I was 12 years old. I had to move to another place of Zambia. Had I lived my whole life that side, I don't think I would have been where I am. And so I learned that our country was going through a poor series of leadership, and there was a need to get involved in providing the change that is required. And so I joined my party, which is the United Party for National Development, when I was 17. I was still in high school then. And I met our leader then when we were in the opposition, our President Hakainde Hichilema, when I was still very young. And I got inspired by the work that he was doing, his business anchorman, and what he's been able to achieve. And so I joined the UPND about 13 years ago, 13 years ago, to be able to provide the change that is required in our country and to ensure that Zambia could move forward. And part of moving forward was that we could be able to provide jobs to the jobless and homes to the homeless, and help our country move from A to B, where B is a better place. And that inspired me from the time that I first joined to the time that I went to university, even up to now, that we retained to help in ensuring that we get into power as the opposition and now the ruling party.
Okay, and kudos to you for that. I mean, you've been a very open critic of the former president, Edgar Lungu. You referred to him as our country has been ransacked by one man and his colleagues at the time. Were you not afraid of that at the time? I mean, like, if you look at different countries, whether in the SADC region, when it comes to people who are in power and openly criticizing them, didn't you have any fears as a young person?
Well, of course, I had fears, a lot of fears, to such an extent that had Lungu won, I don't think some of us would have even had a chance to get a job in this country, because we were fighting so hard against him. I had friends of mine that were against us, fighting even against me. Some of my friends, I had invited them to come on board to ensure that we joined the and they rejected because they knew about to make it. And as a young person, I just come from university, and there was no employment and things were difficult, and so it was very difficult to fight against somebody that was in power and to even speak against him and to criticize him. It was difficult, but we knew that the stakes were so high to ignore the fact that our country was being driven into a ditch. We needed to get out, to put our boots on the ground, and to go and fight punch for punch and defeat him. And we were very proud of the fact that we defeated him, and we mobilized millions and millions of young Zambians to go and search for a better country by bringing in a new wave of UPND leadership under the presidents of our leader, President Hakainde Hichilema. And we're happy that now we're beginning to move our country forward.
All right. So in your perspective, you really are certain that the youth actually won the vote essentially for the party that is the ruling party currently in Zambia?
Of course. The masses of our young people are very critical. And this victory is theirs. They were there from the start. We were fighting punch for punch. young people in my party who were there going on the ground campaigning, because we knew that if we were to win the election, we were going to win it the old-fashioned way, man to man, house to house, individual to individual, doing it the old-fashioned way, campaigning. And if we were to win it, we were going to win it with a huge margin. And so we mobilized the masses of our young people. They came out in their numbers. We had about 7 million voters. Out of that 7 million, 3.9 were young people between the ages of 18 and 35. And so they came out to go and register and vote, to vote. After registering to vote, they went to vote. On the day of voting, they defended the vote. And so this victory is theirs. They fought punch for punch with the dictator, and we're very proud of the work that they did. But we needed to encourage them from the start, because many of them, like I said, were afraid of getting involved or even being a member of the United Party for National Development then, because we were in the opposition, so you could be victimized. So some of us had taken those bullets to say, whatever happens, we needed to save our country. And we encouraged the young people in that process to say, if these fellow young people could get involved and they could sacrifice their time, then so can they do so. So they came out, they supported us, and they went to defend the vote. And at the end of the day, we won, and we won with a very huge margin.
Okay, very interesting. And talking about defending the vote and youth participating in elections, you've been very vocal and critical of dictatorships across Africa, whether you look at Zimbabwe, Tanzania, and the likes. What do you think youths across SADC can learn from Zambian youths in regards to elections and taking control and feeling like they can participate within elections?
Well, I came to understand a few days ago that Zambian youths are quite peculiar as compared to other youths. We brought up a topic that was, uncomfortable, and the other young people across the region felt like, no, it was an insult and all that. But when you are fighting against an oppressor, you need to be tough. You need to take tough decisions. You need to engage in uncomfortable conversations. And part of those conversations is you need to go and fight. These things, these short-term goals of going to our parties and going to listen to the gospel shows, those are short-term goals. If you have somebody that is not spirited and that doesn't have a vision for the country, you are going to suffer at the end of the day. And so, but to say the clubbing, they're going out to listen to the musicians, that will come and go. But if you let these gentlemen to continue being in power, then you're going to struggle for the next 5 years. And so we brought them on board. And we're hoping that young people across the African continent, whether it is in Uganda, whether it is in Zimbabwe or Tanzania, could learn from the Zambian experience, that young people could mobilize themselves to go and retake their country from the hands of oppressors, from the hand of the corrupt. And we did that very well. And we're hoping that we could be able to pass on the baton to other youths within the African continent, and that they could learn from us and be able to implement that in their own nations.
Okay, so I was following your tweets, and you're critical of leadership, whether it is in Zambia or in other Southern African countries. And recently, you're talking about the Namibian Minister of Youth, who is 76. Is politics and age a factor really when it comes to leadership? Is that your opinion?
No, I don't think so. I don't think no one holds the monopoly of wisdom, whether you're young or you're old. Wisdom is something that is impacted in us at any age. I don't think age must be able to determine who should be in positions of leadership. But let us also understand that certain positions must be given to people in certain age categories. You cannot have a 75 or 76-year-old as a minister of youth. And so when I brought such conversations, particularly on social media, people get to criticize some of the things that I say. They say I'm controversial and all those things. But these are genuine conversations that we must have. You cannot have a 75-year-old made to become Minister of Youth because they don't understand what somebody who was born in 1992, for instance, faces. They don't understand what somebody that was born in 2001 faces. And so I made a suggestion to say, if age is not really a factor, if age is just a number, then why can we not have a Ministry of Veteran Affairs being led by 21-year-olds, if that is the case? So I don't believe in the fact that age comes with a monopoly of wisdom. I think wisdom is impacted on individuals regardless of their age. And I think in terms of leadership, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can be able to provide leadership so long as you've got the wisdom and the understanding of the job that is before you.
Okay, very interesting. And then there's the issue of Sesheke Road, which is a road in your area, I believe. And you openly criticize your own political party in that regard, talking about how Zambia should improve and develop all areas of Zambia and not segregate any other areas. How important is it for you to speak truth to power, even if you're criticizing your own party at the end of the day?
Well, let me be clear first that I didn't criticize my own party. I made criticism of the past Zambian presidents. And that doesn't just have to do with the Sesheke Road. It's roads across our country. Some of the roads are a disgrace to our nation. And if you look at these things, some roads are on the border sections. Immediately you enter Zambia from the DRC, the Kasumbalesa border is one of the disgrace of our countries. Sesheke Road is one of them as well, as you enter Zambia from Namibia. And so that road has not been, it has not been rebuilt ever since the Mwanawasa years. President Edgar Lungu came, that road is fixed because the people that side did not vote for his party. And so that is a kind of a failure in leadership that our nation has been facing. And these mistakes, I believed, have driven us backwards. We've had these mistakes for so many years, and we've made mistakes as a country. Some of the mistakes that we've made is that we've not been able to correct the wrongs of the past. We've been able to dismiss honest conversations into political narratives. And what I said is that as a leadership of the United Party for National Development, and what we're proud of is we're in a position now with President Hakainde Hichilema where we could speak honestly about these issues, and we're not going to be called out because he understands those issues of democracy. This is a man that fought very hard to win power, and we fought very hard with him to ensure that we bring in a new wave of Zambian leadership. And so freedom of speech in our country is very open. We are not going, we've seen other ruling parties across SADC. Immediately when you're a member of the ruling party, you say everything is perfect. Even when you see something wrong, you don't speak out. But in Zambia, this is a nation that fought against oppressors. We helped liberate so many countries within SADC in the Kenneth Kaunda era, and now in the leadership of President Hakainde Hichilema, my leader in the United Party for National Development, we've got that kind of freedom to speak honestly and engage in terms of how we can rebuild our country going forward. And I thought the Sesheke Road is one of them, not because I come from there, but because I believe that all the roads in our country must be smooth, and it must help us progress as a country going forward.
Okay, and in as much as I said earlier on that you've gained popularity, you also have enemies on social media. You've been a victim of cyberbullying. You've also been very critical of leaders here within Zimbabwe, the likes of Linda Masarira. You guys always have a to and fro. And some people have said that you also are a bully towards her. You've told her several times to go and bath. And there's a tweet actually where she called you a little Zambian dog, and then you told her to go and bath in the Kariba Dam. Is that constructive, like as a leader as well? Like, what is your aim behind all that? And does that count of in cyberbullying when it comes to of Linda?
Well, first of all, I don't believe in cyberbullying. I don't do that, and I never will. Secondly, I don't engage in the politics of going into private lives of individuals. I don't do that, and I never will. I was raised in a Zambian home where I was taught to respect women and treat them with respect. And I'll continue. The age was Linda laughing at my grandmother, and that kind of mockery also came from the spokesperson of the president of Zimbabwe. I thought it was wrong that my grandmother must be brought onto social media and people should laugh at her. I thought that was totally wrong. If people wanted to have somebody to laugh at and mock, that should have been me. They should have mocked me, they should have laughed at me instead of my grandma. My grandma has got no interest in politics whatsoever. She's a member of the Jehovah's Witness in that denomination. They don't believe in politics. And so I felt the lines were crossed. And when the line is crossed, when somebody begins to insult my grandmom and my parents' side, I don't negotiate. I'm not a pastor. Immediately you begin to speak wrong about my grandmom or my aunties or anyone else that is in my family, then I'm going to respond back. And I responded to Linda. But what has then happened is that the feminists who are watching my grandmom being demonized, there was a picture that went viral on social media where people are laughing at my grandmom and laughing at my village because I was still young then, I was still a university student. I think I was 22, 23 years old, and people were saying I must be able to build my grandma my house, which was had been crossed. And Linda has been coming on. She's been saying a lot of things about me. She calls me a Zambian dog, that I'm a defender of President Hichilema, and I back on his behalf and all those things. And what I felt was that insulting my grandmom was crossing the line, and I needed to respond to that. And I want to make it very clear that the moment that somebody goes into that kind of territory, that uncharted territory, I'm going to respond, and I'm going to respond very vividly.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's fair enough. And then, okay, my last question maybe would be the concept of one Africa, one currency, one country. Do you believe that future is possible for Africa?
Well, it's possible, but also must understand that as Africans, we've not been able to even fix the problems in our own countries. So we are aiming so high without fixing the things that are low. We're talking about, having a whole African continent. So I was asking, even on social media the other day, that you comrades, you're talking about, this one Africa, one currency. Have you given a thought of whoever is going to lead this African one currency and this narrative that you're spreading on social media? And people are saying a lot of things. No, we haven't thought that far. But this is the issue that we face. We are struggling to even rebuild our own individual economies. In Zambia, this is the first time in a long time that my party, under the presidency of President Hakainde Hichilema, we've provided 41,000 public sector jobs. That was not able to be done under the presidency of Edgar Lungu. For the first time in a long time, the Zambian Kwacha is beginning to appreciate. But those issues are happening across the entire African continent, where leaders, are becoming wealthy without any background, individual nations' problems. How are we going to solve the African continent's problems? If you look at the European Union, there's no such things as one country, one thing. The only thing that unites them is the currency that they use, the euro. And they formed the European Union, which is successful. All nations have got their own individual heads of states. Now in Africa, we're talking about this. It's not that I'm not a Pan-African because of the past experiences that we've had. This is the only continent across the world where we've had leaders stay in power for 30 years. In Equatorial Guinea, there's a gentleman that is there for 30 years. In Cameroon, there's Paul Biya, who is there for a long period of time. In Uganda, there's a gentleman there, Kaguta Museveni, that has been there for about almost 37 years old. So how are we then going to have that kind of a direction in Africa where people don't even want to give up power? Who is going to agree to say we should unite and have one president? It's not going to happen. We've failed our own individual nations, and we are aiming for higher things that we cannot even actualize. So I don't believe in the fact that that thing is going to work. But going forward, I think we must unite as Africans. We must do away with these issues of immigrations where we're chasing each other and deporting each other from our nations, and leaving out the Chinese who come here to oppress our people and pour urine on our fellow Africans. So that is my thought on that.
Okay, and then my final question. Zimbabwe is headed for elections next year, 2023. What advice would you give to the youth of Zimbabwe as it heads towards its elections? Obviously, you're very vocal on Twitter, but as a message, as we leave this particular session, what message do you give to the youth of Zimbabwe?
Well, youth of Zimbabwe, look, you've lived most of your lives seeing things the way they are. In Zambia, we've also done the same. We had done that, but this is the time to review. This is the time to ensure that people could graduate into economies that offer them jobs. This is the time to ensure that the currency can stabilize. This is the time to ensure that there is leadership that cares for you. And part of that leadership that cares, rebuild broken down healthcare systems. That is what we are doing now in Zambia. Ever since we removed President Lungu, now we're providing a free education to the masses of our people. And for the first time in a long time, we're ensuring that community development funds are distributed on time and our people can be able to rebuild their own communities. And so I do believe that even the young people of Zimbabwe, you can be able to do that. You can be able to mobilize yourselves, register to vote and go and vote in a huge number so that Zimbabwe, your kids can be able to graduate into a Zimbabwean economy that works, into an economy that, they can be proud of, into a nation that whose economy can be stable, free, and able to stand on its own 2 feet. So the future is in your hands. Go out and ensure that your nation succeeds, and part of success should be played by you individually and your friends and your communities by mobilizing them and telling them that which they must do. Their civic responsibilities to go and register to vote and go and vote on the voting day. So thank you.
No, thank you so much, Joseph. Thanks so much for making time for us. And thank you so much for inspiring us, as Africans and as African youth. We wish you all the success as the Information and Publicity Secretary for UPND. And of course, thank you so much for joining us once again.
No, thank you very much. It has been an honor to speak to you, and particularly.
All right, my screen is frozen, but then I think our interview is fine. Thank you so much again for being in touch and just availing your time. I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll be in touch in the future. When you visit Zimbabwe, you come and visit us. Our doors are very much welcome to you.
Well, I'm not sure if I can be welcome that side.
Don't worry.
I'm not so sure if they welcome me, but after 2020, hopefully after 2020 I can be.